Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
You are about to participate in the most ambitious culinary experiment ever imagined.
This competition is going to test everything.
Adapt quickly to anything. I mean anything. The wildest day of your life starts right now.
All new 24 and 24, Last Chef Standing. Sunday night at 8 on Food Network. Stream on Max.
This is a Rogue Media Network podcast. This is Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Central Texas Life, and I am so happy to have Miguel Harth-Bedoya up here. Now, you've been on the podcast before talking about Waco Symphony things.
That's right.
But you have your Baylor hat on because I want to get this right. You are the Mary Franks Thompson Professor of Orchestral Studies at Baylor University and music director of the Baylor Symphony Orchestra.
Yes.
And you've got something really exciting, first-time thing for these Baylor musicians.
Yes, what is very exciting is that we'll be taking the orchestra outside campus and we'll be performing next Tuesday, April the 23rd at Bass Performance Hall in Fort Worth, which is one of the finest performance venues in the country. And that's where I worked for 20 years before coming to Baylor. So I'm super excited to be able to show my new home to my old home.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, of course, I'm just imagining all the Baylor fans with their pom-poms. They need to be in the audience cheering.
Oh,
the
yeah,
musicians on. Why not?
We're close to a football game as far as, creating the experience of excitement. And so the crowds are equally important, to have your supporters, your groupies, and get the other fans that don't know us yet to come and see us.
Well, of course, Baylor's music program is renowned, and even more so the fact that you came, which was, you are a big deal.
Oh, thank you.
And so it was very strongly communicated to me when Miguel Harth-Bedoya came to take Stephen Hyde's position as Director of Orchestral Studies at Baylor. It was a very big deal, and we were just thrilled that you're here at Baylor and hope that, 2 years now?
I'm finishing my second year.
Yeah,
time flies, and we already have done 2 projects together. And
that's
so,
right. That's what we could talk about. Children's Symphony, too, because that's certainly dear to my heart. But first, another thing dear to my heart is the Waco Symphony Orchestra, and you so beautifully stepped in and kind of filled the gap between, Stephen's retirement and then us hiring Larry Lowe, to be the music director, conductor. Did you have a good time with that?
I had a great time.
It was so much fun to watch you conduct.
Oh, well, thank you. Every time I conduct an orchestra for the first time, and I've been around for a long time now. I've been conducting for over 35 years professionally, and there are very few orchestras that I've not conducted yet. So the Waco Symphony was
been all over.
But the Waco Symphony was one of them that I had never conducted before, and to see some of my colleagues that are in the faculty at the School of Music to actually play under my direction, that's a very different scenario, but also very enjoyable because normally we don't get to make music together. I get to make music with the students. And so it was a wonderful, wonderful experience, and also get to share different repertoire with the audiences as well. So, I it was one of the greatest projects I've done.
Well, you were so important in helping us plan this season in kind of planning and getting things in place for we had 2 more candidates, in fact, before Larry was called. And even the Pops concert, which recently was huge. It was a huge hit. I remember sitting in that meeting with you. Well, now in Fort Worth, we've done the Star Wars and Star Trek and all that, and it was really fun.
Yeah, and being the day before the total solar eclipse was even...
That helped.
That helped too,
You sort of had a built-in theme, the
Yes.
out of this world.
Yes.
But yeah, and I've learned so much being involved on the board level with the Waco Symphony, both the Symphony Council and the Symphony Association, in all that goes into these seasons of maybe 5 concerts.
Yes. The preparation behind anything that audiences see, it's immense. They just see the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. What's underneath, piling up and building for years. Sometimes it's years before you can get one project happening because it may have elements of dates, content programmed, artists, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, there are many things that I've been postponing for years because you don't find the right intersection of all the elements. So, but that's what we do. I mean, we think that way as conductors, as music directors. We have to think ahead in terms of selecting repertoire, not now, maybe next year, maybe in 2 years, maybe in 5 years, maybe an artist now.
Because these artists, they're booked.
Yeah, or if there are certain anniversaries of composers, you don't want to over-program as well. Or on the contrary, sometimes you want to repeat things because, I mean, who doesn't like to hear something that they know? Who doesn't like to go to their favorite restaurant because they know what they're going to order already?
And they always get it.
Exactly.
And it's always good.
Exactly. So an orchestra is no different than that because we're there we don't have the option of menu because once you're there, you only have one fixed menu for the audience.
Yeah.
But it's the same idea. Music does something to people, and we should never forget that. The power of music is incredible, and it touches people. You cannot touch music, but music can touch you, and that should never be forgotten.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about the menu for the Bass Performance Hall concert on the 23rd. You're doing some Ravel. Mm-hmm. And, tell me about
So the program is in 2 parts across intermission, and it opens with Ravel's La Valse, which is a tribute to the Viennese waltz written by a French composer of Basque background. So it's a very wonderful, eclectic apotheosis to celebrate something so simple as chap, 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 which is a waltz.
That's right, which is a waltz.
And it's also a tour de force because it shows off the entire, 100-piece orchestra. And then after that, we have Bruch Violin Concerto in G minor number 1 with an amazing soloist. Now, this is also how things happen is for a reason. I think these are all providential signs. So Richard Lin won the International Violin Competition in Indianapolis in 2018. And he's also won competitions in New Zealand, in Japan, and in Europe. And what happened to him is that the pandemic hit and all his concerts never happened.
Right.
Or never happened as they should have. So past winners of this competition would include Augustin Hadelich, for example. I mean, this is the top violin competition we have in this country at the international level. So I didn't know Richard at all. And last November, I was guest conducting in Taiwan, the National Symphony of Taiwan. And then I went to a chamber music concert, and there he was playing. And then I went to another concert, the university orchestra featuring Lalo Symphony Español, and he was playing. This is an amazing violinist. Who is he? And so, I introduced myself. We met, we talked, and I said, wow, hopefully we can do something together. And then I asked one of those questions is, what would you be doing in April, because it's pretty late, and we originally had an all-orchestral program.
Yeah.
And then he said, well, I'm going to be playing in Washington, D.C., and then I'll be on my way to San Francisco a week later. And I said, you're literally going to fly over Texas when you are free. So I managed to grab him and arrange for him to come. So he's arriving tomorrow, and he's going to teach. He's going to rehearse. He's spending the weekend with us. And he's doing 2 performances. And then after our Bass Performance Hall, he'll be off to San Francisco. So then comes intermission, and then we'll play Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition.
Yeah.
Orchestrated by Ravel, the composer of which we play the opening piece. So it kind of ties
nice
all that together. Yeah.
And it kind of ties into children's concert.
That's
because
right.
the very first one you and I were able to do together.
Correct.
Use some of the pictures.
And I also thought about that because my first performance with the Baylor Symphony was with Pictures at an Exhibition.
It
So
was.
we're using it as a marker. 2 years later, where have we grown together?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So it's a very exciting program. If you don't know any of the pieces, I can just tell you they're so flavorful and so alive and so engaging that you can't miss it.
You will love it. So what do you say to someone who might be a little intimidated by the whole idea of classical music and classical concerts and so forth? I mean, what I've noticed in the Waco Symphony concerts, certainly there's just an element of fun. I mean, it's clear that the musicians are having a good time.
Yes. Well,
and the audience needs to as well.
Yes. Now, for a long time, I've actually dropped the term classical music because we're not even certain what it means.
That's
to
true.
tell you the truth. So I just call it orchestral music. So when you go and hear an orchestra, you are hearing pretty much a band that has evolved over centuries. But, I mean, pictures at an exhibition has saxophone and euphonium. So these things that in the classical era didn't exist. So I think we've come a long ways that it's very important to connect the 21st century with the team called orchestra, because we're a team of many, many, many musicians, just led by one coach, but they're really the ones playing. So you watch a performance just like as if you watch a game, except that there's only one team on stage. But it's exactly the same. So even if you know the piece, you don't know the outcome. Because you can have two rival football teams playing over and over, year after year, but you never know the outcome.
Right.
And that's the exciting part of a live performance. And that's what you're referring to, fun. Yes, because you don't know what's going to be happening shortly after you start playing. And then you get wowed and you get mesmerized and you get impressed by what orchestras can do. And that feeling only happens in the concert hall. There's no recording, either video or audio, that can replace that feeling. Again, you can replay the touchdown 20 times, but it's only the first time when it wows you.
Yeah. Well, you spoke so eloquently about the first time for things, because on the programs that we heard you plan for the symphony, there were brand new works.
Yes.
And one included all kinds of electronic sounds. I mean, it was very new age and interesting. Yeah.
Yes, when I commission pieces, I don't tell the composers what they should write. I just say I need this duration or this many instruments that we'll have in the program. But creativity is something that I don't have as a conductor. I cannot create music. Even though I've studied composition, my job is to recreate, which is different but equally hard. So I don't meddle into what people should create, and they should do their best, and then I do my best to recreate that for the audience. So I'm just the middleman.
You're so humble.
But I'm literally the middleman, because I'm in the middle.
You're in the middle
of the orchestra and the audience and the composer.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your background. You're from Peru.
Yes, born and raised.
And so, how did from your childhood, did you always kind of know you were interested in music? Or
Well, I grew up in a musical household, but not doing the music that I do now. So my mom, who still lives in Lima, is a freelance gig musician.
Is she?
Yeah. She always was in, weddings, parties, reception ceremonies, you name it.
Keyboard or what?
Anything.
Oh, really?
Yes, keyboard, choir, singer. She would hire. So she was a contractor as well. So anyway, single mom family, and we live with our grandmother. And my sister, older sister, by 2 years, she always wanted to play the guitar. So as far as I remember, she always played the guitar. Right there, I don't remember that suddenly she was playing guitar. She always played guitar. And I was sort of assigned to learn piano and then violin, because back then, I mean, we're talking about the 70s, where Peru had limited even radio, and needless to say, zero internet. It didn't exist. So you were limited by the amount of music you could hear. So you had to make the music yourself. So music was something that people would do, at the domestic level. So that was my musical upbringing, and then helping my mom in their gigs. So I heard certain music, and that was it. And then I also was part of a folk dance troupe when I was 15, 16. And then I got a job as backstage crew for the theater in Lima for about 4 months a year. So I would finish high school early, like 2:30, and then go to the theater from 4 till midnight for 4 months in a row. And the theater produced operas. So that's what got my attention. Operas. Most of them were in Italian, but I was behind the scenes, or in the basement, or in the pit.
In the pit,
So I wasn't really a musician. But however, my musical abilities allow me to move up the chain, even to become a prompter, because I could read music. So I was the only technician that could read music.
That's important.
So, right. So that's how I got to meet some musicians that would come from other countries, and until I met one of the conductors, and he said, yeah, you can actually study conducting. I had no idea that you could study this, because then Peru didn't have a school of music that trained conductors. So my only
whole
option...
country?
The whole country. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So that means the only option I had was to leave my country and look for this. And that's how I ended up here in America.
Yeah, so you went to Curtis.
Curtis in Philadelphia.
Yeah, in Philadelphia, and then studied at Juilliard.
Juilliard in New York, yep.
Yeah, but that had to have been that's a big step.
They were.
For you to leave
They were.
your home country. And
Yeah, but when
as a
you
kid,
have
you know?
when you have the passion, the goal, then you have the vision. And I recommend this to anybody when they ask you, what should I study? Find your passion, find the goal, and have vision to what you can do. Because without that, you'll be drifting. So if you don't find your passion yet, that's okay. It'll come. Eventually it'll come. So that's what I did. And I set a goal, and I worked very hard to prepare for the entrance auditions. Took me about a year to prepare.
Really? What did you have to
Yes.
do to prepare
Well,
for?
the requirements were
Curtis ask for
very,
you to-
very simple. It was in one
really?
paragraph. Yeah,
Oh.
because I've saved it and said, high degree of musicianship. Yeah, what does that mean, right? And then you have to be proficient in one instrument,
Okay.
but you must also play the keyboard and be able to read scores in any clef and in any transposition. That's all.
But that's a lot.
I know, but that's
That's a
all it
big
said.
deal.
So it's like, what do you need to be a surgeon? Well, just have good pre-med studies, which are
Yeah.
huge. So and then if you were invited to take the audition, mind you, this is all by mail. So the correspondence would take weeks to
Right.
come. The replies would not come back in 2-3 weeks. So anyway, and then if you were invited to the orchestra, you would have to conduct this music or selection from this. And one of them, mandatory piece, was excerpts from Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. So, okay, this is what I'm doing. So I prepared it my best. And I know that I wasn't perfect, but an entrance audition is not for that. Because if you know already all of it, why would you go to school?
Why do you need to go to school?
Right. But I was being tested, and this is after the fact that I've learned. You're tested on your assets, on your talents, on your capabilities, or what challenges you, or what don't you have, and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, great academic training.
yes.
And so forth. The conducting part, though, this is something you always wanted to do, and you really have a passion for training
Yes,
young conductors
absolutely.
too. Let's talk a little about that.
If you want to become a surgeon, and I mentioned a moment ago, nowadays you kind of know what it takes to become a surgeon. But when you see a surgeon, you only see a little bit of action. You don't see a lot.
Right.
But to cut, to make an incision, and to do a small fix takes precision and knowledge and experience. So conducting is a little bit like that. You see just this little bit of a person waving a stick and others playing. Yeah, but to do it correctly and exactly takes a lot of preparation and training in many, many different areas. So it's just a long journey that it cannot be shortened. The same thing, you cannot skip pre-med. Can you imagine? Freshman in school. Here, there's what do you call it? Scalp. Make an incision on a living patient. It's a hard procedure. You can kill the patient.
Yeah, you absolutely.
Well, you can kill the music too.
Yeah.
If you're being given this without respect and knowledge about the music. Because conducting is about that. It's showing respect, appreciation to somebody else's music. And your job is to be at the service of that piece of music, to keep it alive, just like a patient's. So that takes time, and you cannot accelerate time. So this is why I teach conducting from the undergrad level, so that you can have at least good 4 years, good 4 slow years to build that foundation, which includes also languages. You cannot not speak less than 3 languages or understand or work. Yeah, because most of the musical language in music is Italian, French, and German.
Right.
So you kind of have to. Otherwise, you would limit yourself to what you can do. So, and then goes the knowledge of all the instruments, and the list goes on and on and on. And also because there's more new music, so we'll never be short of things to do.
Yeah.
And to learn.
Well, it's always wonderful from my standpoint as narrator for the children's symphonies, how many of your student conductors are so very involved in the program, and they're so good. I mean, and you're kind of watching like a proud papa. I see you.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a joy, because I was being given that opportunity. I mean, I did my undergrad in conducting and my master's in conducting. And so I always want to make sure that I would return that to others. It's something we kind of have to be doing to keep this wheel smoothly running and not have gaps in the generations of training conductors. So I've started doing this some time ago, and now I do it sort of institutionally, officially embraced, by a degree plan and, 2 degree plans, the undergrad and the graduate level. Yeah.
And you have an institute that even works with high school.
Yes, exactly.
So they're really young students.
Yes, and even now this coming summer, during the Baylor School of Music camps, I will be conducting the high school orchestra camp.
Good.
But I've also created a high school orchestral conducting camp, which is more like shadow the conductor and observe what this is about. Because in a week you can only do that. But we don't even have those things available.
Right.
So, and if we keep the high schoolers sort of together, then you have peers of equal interests. So that's the new program.
Yeah, that's good. You have conducted symphonies literally all over the world. Auckland, New Zealand, in Oregon, Eugene Symphony, Lima, of course, in Peru, New York Youth Orchestra at Carnegie Hall. That's kind of a mecca for a musician. And University of Nebraska is where you were director of orchestral studies
Right
when
before
you came
coming,
to Baylor.
yeah.
But you've really conducted all over. Do you have like what really stands out, a real special memory of any place
There
that
are
you've conducted?
several. I mean, I remember conducting at the Sydney Opera House or in Berlin. The one city I've never conducted is Vienna, and that's one of the meccas of music. Exactly. So there may be time. I mean, you never know how long in life you are useful as a musician to others. But next coming fall, I'll be conducting at the Metropolitan Opera House in New York. So the Met. So the only thing that this tells me is that it's good to maintain the quality of what you do. And it's only a matter of timing when your talents are applicable somewhere. Because some musicians sometimes feel a bit frustrated, say, I'm good, but why am I not doing this and this? Because it's a combination of elements. You always have to be very good. You have to be your best, not perfect, but your best today. And the opportunities will be a combination of who you are, what do you play or conduct, and where, and what is needed. So if those things don't happen, that means you have to be constantly searching for them, which is what I did. So if everybody wants to play only in London, well, that's a massive bottleneck, because everybody will be wanting to go to one place. Right. So you have to discover the world. I mean, I came to Fort Worth, Texas 25 years ago when the scene there was not what it is now. So I built something for 20 years. Yeah. And before that, I lived in Auckland, New Zealand, far away from the world. Now at least there's internet and direct flights. But I built communities there. It was about 10 years. And then before in Eugene, Oregon, even further more removed. But once you're somewhere, you are there. So it may appear that you are nowhere, but you are always somewhere. Yeah. Like I'm here with you, and people should always treasure where you are at the moment and make that your best project.
Absolutely. One other thing I want to talk to you about, and that has to do with Caminos del Inca. Tell me about that.
So for years now, for 20-some years, I started getting requests from orchestras to include some Latin American works. And they say, but include something by Ginastera, Villalobos, or Chavez, which were the only 3 published composers. I mean, we're talking, Villalobos was born in the late 19th century, so it's long ago.
Yeah.
And I would say, well, what about the music of Osvaldo Golijov? Who? Osvaldo Golijov, and now orchestras play. Or Jimmy Lopez, or Gabriela Franks, like, who are they? And little by little, people trusted that my recommendations were good. So that's how it started, and that's how I got it. I won an Emmy Award with the LA Philharmonic and the Hollywood Bowl for a program called Latin Spectacular. And it was just all this music that nobody heard. So this was just personal interest that I had. And the fact that I'm Peruvian doesn't make me an expert on Argentinian music or Caribbean music. I still have to learn it all. So anyway, in one of those times that I was working with Yo-Yo Ma, with the Chicago Symphony, he was always asking, what's new for me to play? Because he has played everything.
Yeah.
What else can I play? So we were discussing, there's this, there's that, and then I did another project with him with the Silk Road project. So we met again. The next time, I said, the Inca Trails. I said, what about that? It's in my bucket list to go and visit, to hike them. Great. And then we kept talking in the same evening, and then we had a reception after the concert with the Chicago Symphony, and he said, well, Miguel's project now is going to be the Inca Trails. And I said, what do you mean? Well, I've got the Silk Road, you've got the Inca Trails. And that's how it happened, to create a poetic idea, because the Inca Trails unite 6 current countries. And the Silk Road also connects. So is this idea, can music connect people and territories? I was just going north to south or south to north, while he was going east to west. And that's how it all started. So I've done programs all over the world with mainly orchestras, because that's my area of work. Boston Symphony, Philadelphia Orchestra, in the Netherlands, in Leipzig, the home of Bach and Mendelssohn. No, we're doing this music of Latin American, the Caribbean, of all times, classical, traditional, contemporary, and it has added a great wealth of repertoire. Everywhere. So, and recordings have come out of that, broadcast, podcasts. So I feel very happy that I've been able to contribute, to, in a certain way, the history of repertoire.
No, that's an amazing contribution. Well, I like to end these visits with a little questionnaire, similar to the one the late, great James Lipton used on Inside the Actor's Studio. So I'm going to ask you these questions. What is your favorite word?
Hope.
Okay. Your least favorite word?
Complaints.
Yeah, right. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
If it's an award, I would say joy. There has to be joy on anything that would trigger that. And could be music, could be writing, could be reading. Okay. But I have to be joyful about it. So the topic.
Yeah. Well, what then turns you off creatively or spiritually or emotionally?
Negativity. At any level.
Certainly heard that. I've certainly heard that before. I'm going to ask a musician, what sound do you love the most?
Nature.
Yeah. Anything in particular?
Whatever nature produces at that time, because that's music. Except that we just don't write it, and humans don't have the ability to create. We may copy it, but nature is the best composer of any time. And many composers have been inspired by nature, but since I'm not a composer, I just enjoy that's the best music.
Yeah, I think of Respighi's of Pines of Rome. That's got the sounds in it. And that was way ahead of his time.
Yes, to record birds and put them in the concert hall.
No, to put it in the concert hall. Wow. What is your least favorite sound?
What do you call them? Car horns.
Yeah. All right.
When they're not intended to be used.
When they're just, making a rude comment. Yeah. Oh, so what other, you knew from an early age you wanted to do what you're doing today, but what other profession would you like to have tried?
Something with reading, either history, literature, something along those lines. I probably wouldn't have been a lawyer or much less a scientist. But something along those lines, or maybe they would turn into political science or diplomacy, something along those lines.
Right,
so non-performing at all.
Oh yeah. What profession then you would not want to do? No,
doctor.
I've heard that before.
Right away.
And what I heard from a doctor was lawyer.
Yeah, I couldn't be a doctor. I just don't have the strength to.
Yeah, I mean we're glad they're out there.
Right, exactly, absolutely. That's when you appreciate everything that you cannot do or don't want to do. They better be somebody else that can do it well.
Oh, man. Finally, what do you want to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
This is great music.
Yeah. He's going to have some pretty good sounds, I think, for sure. Well, again, Baylor Symphony. It's going to be at Bass Performance Hall on the 23rd. Do you think they'll be able to buy tickets at the door?
Yes, it's very easy. It's better always to do it ahead.
Oh,
this is at basshall.com, I believe, or Bass Hall Performing Arts Fort Worth. You can easily find it, and you go to their calendar, and that's the only concert on April 23rd. It's at 7 o'clock. So that if people come from here, they have time to come back and without being too late.
Yeah, it's an hour and a half. It's not that.
Or less, because it's right by the freeway.
Literally
one exit of I-35. So yeah, I hope to see everybody there.
It's
Make
gonna be
a
an
trip.
awesome
And also,
concert.
I mean, downtown has so many restaurants, that you can
Make
make
an
almost a
evening.
little. Yeah, exactly, absolutely. That's a
yeah.
wonderful space, Sundance Square and all that. So.
Yeah, and wear your green and gold. I just, I think.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Filling Bass Hall with all the Baylor gear is just
Yeah.
going to be, gonna be
Yes.
perfect.
Hopefully, everybody can join us there.
Well, again, Miguel, it's just a joy to know you, and I'm looking forward to November and need to come back. Well, let's talk about children's
Absolutely.
concerts.
We'll do it again.
Because this is something that's been going on for 78 years. I think we're
Absolutely.
at 78.
And we should continue
Not
doing
me
this.
personally, but almost. Almost that many. No, I mean, and that is just loads of fun to talk about, to bring that music to children. It's awesome. Yes. It's awesome.
Well,
thank you again.
Thank you for having me here.
Thrilled that you're here at Baylor and here in Waco, and thank you again for your time. And thank you for being with us for Central Texas Life. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Central Texas Life with Ann Harder is part of the Rogue Media family. Be sure to check out our other shows at roguemedianetwork.com. Please rate this show 5 stars on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Join us again soon for more Central Texas Life with Ann Harder. This has been a Rogue Media Network production.